So you've got a job in the US. In this video, I want to be breaking down the checkpoints that you must hit your first day in the US, your first week in the US, your first month in the US, and your first year in the US. Here are my qualifications. My name's Kangla Kangaroo. I'm a Canadian software engineer who moved from the Toronto area to Seattle. Now I have my green card and I make YouTube videos about software engineering, personal finance, and investing for Canadians. Our journey actually starts before we move to the US. And it starts in Canada. So before you move to the US, there are a bunch of different things that will be very helpful for you to do. So the first thing I want to go over is your finances. Finances is probably the most difficult and confusing thing when it comes to moving to the States, just because of how different these systems work and the different dollar, etc. If you have any investments, I really recommend talking to a cross-border accountant before you go. There are a lot of things that you can do to make your life easier come next year when you have to do taxes, if you do it before you leave Canada. So that's like the number one takeaway from this video. If you have not moved yet and you are trying to move, if you do that, you're basically everything else in this video is like a nice to have, but this one thing is the most important, I would say. So I'm not an accountant, obviously, but it can provide some things that I did and that I've seen online. So number one is TFSA is a big no-no. You have to basically close your TFSA before you move to the US. The reason is the US sees the TFSA as a foreign trust and it taxes it much higher than it normally would. So you would lose your tax-free status in the TFSA. Secondly, if you have an RRSP, you can keep it depending on the state that you move to. I never had an RRSP, so I don't really know too much about that. And finally, if you have a brokerage account, you can keep the brokerage account. There's some additional filing that you have to do on the US side. It's not that difficult, but it can get pretty complicated pretty fast. I kept my brokerage when I moved from Canada to the US, and I regret that decision. I have a whole video talking about like the tax situation in my first year when I moved. I will leave it on screen, but basically the TLDR is go talk to a cross-border accountant, figure out what specific things you need to do before you move to make your life easier. Another thing is that if you move to the US and you let Questrade know that you've moved and you've changed your address to a US address, they'll no longer let you do any buying actions on Questrade. You'll only be able to do selling and liquidation. Up next, we have bank accounts. I found it pretty helpful to keep a bank account in Canada. The reason is, you got to pay for your loan or someone wants to e-transfer you or something like that. So it's kind of nice to have. Before moving to the US, you can actually open a cross-border banking account with like RBC, CIBC, etc. This is nice because you can convert Canadian to USD very easily, and then you have an actual US bank account that you can use. I did this. I found it useful for like the first week, and then I did not need it after that. And looking back, I think you can definitely get by with not having one, but if you want one, it's a nice to have. Next up, we have credit cards. I personally canceled all my credit cards except for like the longest standing one that I had that had no yearly fee. And on top of that, majority of the cards in the US are superior in most ways if you want to play the credit card game. Another thing to note is your credit history does not transfer over from Canada to the US with the exception of Amex. When you're coming to the US, you're basically going to be like a brand new baby in terms of credit. Next, we have student loans. If you have student loans, they had to be paid from a Canadian bank account, just in my experience with OSAP at least. So either pay it off fully before you leave or expect to send home money every month or whatever, or every year to pay it back your loan. So I still have my student loan in Canada. I plan to fully pay it off this year just because it's been getting really annoying to deal with. Also, random subscriptions. You want to be canceling your Netflix, your Amazon, whatever, and just resubscribe when you get back to the US or when you get to the US. I'd also to remember to use your health insurance while in Canada. Like if you have good health insurance through your employer or through your parents, make sure to get your teeth cleaning, checkup, etc. Because while there is healthcare in the US, it's not free. So either your employer, or a combination of those two are going to be paying for it. Whereas in Canada, I think most of the time it's free, or it's definitely going to be cheaper. Next up is your phone number. I would keep your phone number for a little bit just because when you move to the US, you're going to need to access your 2FA or whatever. But after a while, you can cancel your phone number, move all your 2FA over, and then, or do what I did and put it into a call forwarding service, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That covers everything you need to do before you move to the US. Now, let's say you entered the US successfully and it's day one. These are the most important things that you have to do on day one when you get to the US. First is getting a US phone number. I would recommend getting a prepaid card just for a little bit at least, just because, once you start work, you might have an employee discount, or you might meet someone that could put you on a family plan that'll be cheaper. Now, once you get a good phone plan and move over all your accounts and stuff, you can put your phone number, your Canadian phone number, into a call forwarding service. So that's what I did. I used Number Barn. It's $2 a month. I can receive texts from my Canadian phone number, which honestly at this point I never do, but it's just still nice to have. If I ever move back, I want to keep my Canadian number. It's like $24 a year. So, okay, then the second most important thing that you should do, honestly probably more important than the phone number, is getting your SSN. This is probably the most important document that you have in the US aside from your passport. So it's imperative that you get this like the first day, or you go and try to get the appointment the first day. I think that these days you can probably just walk in and ask for an appointment, or maybe do an appointment online before you come to the US. When I came, it was much different. It was during COVID, so we had to get an appointment, and it took me like almost a month and a half to get my SSN just because of all delays and stuff. And the third most important thing, and this is the only other activity you have to do for the day, is get a bank account. Now, I just pick one of the big banks, like Bank of America, Chase, etc., because they're everywhere. And then after a while, if you find that the big banks, I mean, they all kind of suck. But if you find that they suck, you can move to a smaller credit union or whatever. So that's basically everything you got to do by day 1. Next up, we have day 10. So after about 10 days or a week or so in the US, these are the things that you should have done or on your list of things to do. Number 1, driver's license. So in a lot of cases, you can actually transfer your Canadian driver's license 1-for-1 for an American driver's license. Now, this depends on the state you're moving to and the province you're coming from. For example, I moved from Ontario to Washington, and I tried to do that. They're like, no, you have to retest. So for a while, I had a state ID and I was not driving. But then eventually I had tested and I got my Washington state license. On the other hand, if I had moved from Vancouver, like BC, and I moved to Washington, they would have switched it right away. And it's the same sort of deal like on the East Coast. Like if you move from Ontario to New York, they'll switch it right away for you and then give you your US license. Next up is an apartment. So I think within 10 days, you should have signed a lease or at least have an idea of where you're living. And in my experience, well, I guess like the one experience I had moving from Canada to the US, they're obviously not going to have any of your credit history. And they're basically going off good faith and your offer letter. So they're going to charge you a higher than normal security deposit. I think I had to pay like a month and a half or like a month, I can't remember exactly, of security deposit. So it might make sense to just get a roommate maybe for like 6 months, for a year, just to, make friends and get accustomed to the city while not having to figure out renting right away. So those are the 2 main things that I think you should be done or doing by your first week in the US. All right, by month 1, you should have your SSN in hand, hopefully. You should have that number. And that means you can open up your investment accounts right now. And part of the reason of moving to the US is because the money's much better. So you should be taking advantage of your investment accounts and really understanding the fundamentals of, the US tax accounts and the way that the money works in the US, because you're here for a reason. At this time, you're probably also going to be able to enroll in your company benefits because you now have your SSN. And like by company benefits, I mean like your 401k, your ESPP, et cetera, et cetera. It's at this time you're probably also getting your first paycheck or maybe your second paycheck and potentially even your signing bonus. So it's really important at this time that you figure out your money, create a budget, try to stick to your budget. It's going to be hard because this is like your first month in the US, first year in the US. So, you're going to be spending money left and right, but at least having an idea of where your money is going is going to be really, really helpful going forward. So like I said, it's important to start investing right now, or at least figuring out your investment accounts. And as a quick refresh, if you don't know what all these US accounts are, I will do a quick, run by them right now. So the 401k is a tax deferred investment account that's sponsored by your employer. So basically what that means is that you take pre-tax money from your paycheck and you directly contribute it to your 401k. In a lot of circumstances, your employer will match a certain percentage to your 401k, which is free money. So you should be taking advantage of your match if you have it. What this money does now in the 401k is it grows tax-free until you pull it out at 59.5. If you pull it out before that, you're going to pay a fee. After that, you don't have to. When you pull that money out, it is taxed at the marginal rate that you pull it out at. The 401k is a very similar account to the RRSP if you're familiar with it, but they slightly differ in ways here and there. Now, the Roth IRA is another investment account. This one's like self-funded and self-directed. This one is very similar to the TFSA. Roth IRA has a limit of $7,000 a year. And if you make over a certain amount of money, I can't remember what that is, I'll put it on screen, you have to do something called the backdoor Roth. It's like a loophole to invest directly into the Roth IRA. This money is after-tax money that grows tax-free and that you can withdraw tax-free after 59.5. If you want to withdraw your money before then, you can withdraw your contributions 5 years after you contributed money to the Roth IRA. And finally, we have the brokerage account, which is just a regular taxable account. This is the other thing that you probably are going to be using and investing with in the US. This account's pretty straightforward. It's basically the same thing as in Canada, but one specific caveat for Canadians who are living in the US, there's a way to essentially use the brokerage account like it's a Roth IRA light version, almost. So I don't really want to get into the whole entire topic of that right now, but I do have a video explaining how to basically not evade, but not pay a lot of the taxes legally with the brokerage account. So you can watch that video right here if you're interested. Now, at this point, you probably also have to enroll into your employer's benefits programs, like their health benefits. And from what I've seen, reminder, I'm not American and I'm not right about everything, but from what I've seen, there's two major options that you have. The first is called a low deductible plan, and the second is called a high deductible plan. And normally what I've seen from my experience, mostly in the tech space, is that plans with a high deductible will come with something called an HSA. HSA is a health savings account that lets you invest pre-tax dollars into this account. It lets you grow tax-free, and you can withdraw it for any reasons related to healthcare expenditures. Also, if you don't withdraw for healthcare expenditures, by the time that you turn 60 or like 59 and a half, I can't remember, or 65, you can withdraw the money completely tax-free. So it's actually the only account that's triple tax sheltered in the US. But I'm unclear on how to bring the HSA back to Canada, just FYI there. Additionally, with the high deductible plan, sometimes from what I've seen, you can get also an FSA, which is the flexible health savings plan. FSA. Flexible health savings account. Can't remember what it stands for, but basically it's similar to an HSA. But if you have a high deductible plan, so if you have an HSA and an FSA, the FSA can only be used for dental and eye care. And you can contribute a certain amount of money to the FSA each year, but the money does not roll over. Only a certain amount rolls over. I think it's like $500 or something. I can't remember. And the HSA, obviously, it's an investment account, so that money rolls over. This base doesn't roll over, but the amount that you contribute rolls over to the year after to compound. What high deductible means is that if you get into an accident, you have to pay a lot of money before in medical companies or before the insurance kicks in and pays money with you. So they usually say it is like, oh, you have an out-of-pocket max that you have to pay before you start to get supplemental help from your insurance provider. And it's usually in tune, say, okay, you pay before your deductible, you pay like 90% and your insurance pays 10%. And the deductible from what I've seen in my company is like $3,000, $3,500 that you have to pay before the insurance company kicks in their help. So that's a high deductible plan. A low deductible plan is kind of what it sounds like. It's a low deductible, like your out-of-pocket max is much lower. And on top of that, you have lower co-pays, which is something I didn't mention, the high deductible plan. Every time you go to the doctor, you have to pay. I have a low deductible plan and it's like $20. I have to pay like $20, $35, $50, that sort of thing every time I go to the doctor or specialist. With the low deductible plan, you have the FSA as well. This FSA can be used for everything though. Anything health related, you can use this FSA for if you have a low deductible plan. Honestly, saying all this stuff, it's super complicated. And I do not know why healthcare in the US needs to be this complicated. Why can't we just go and be like, okay, like basically give it to me for free? And in a lot of cases, your employer will not pay for your full health insurance. You'll have to pay some monthly just to, have health insurance. My company thankfully pays for all my health insurance, so I don't have to pay any monthly premiums. But in some cases, you might have to, depending on the company you work at. So that kind of covers medical, which I did not think I'd be talking about, but we did anyways. The next thing I want to talk about during your month one that you have to do is figure out your immigration. So a lot of companies offer immigration assistance on day one or like by month 3 or whatever. So you need to figure out if your company offers immigration assistance. And I personally would take advantage of it just because you don't know what you're going to be doing in like a year, 2 years, 3 years. And a lot of the immigration stuff, it takes a long time, first of all. Second of all, it all depends on when you start filing these things. So if you file it earlier, you're going to have an earlier spot in line and get your green card sooner if that's something you're looking for. If it's not something you're looking for, okay, I guess you wasted a little bit of time, but you're only wasting time at this point. You're not committing to getting your green card. You're just doing the paperwork in case you want it, which I think is a good idea. So after a year, you've been in America for a year. America probably feels like your first home or your second home now at this point. At this point in time, you have to figure out your taxes. This is going to be probably your biggest headache in your first year in the US is your US taxes in your first year, Canadian US taxes. It's a nightmare a little bit, kind of. And like I said, this is the time that you want to be talking to your cross-border accountant. This is the time that you're going to be thanking yourself for talking to a cross-border accountant before you left Canada, so that everything is now super simple. You maybe don't even need to use a cross-border accountant to help you out file it first year if you have a simple enough situation. If you don't, okay, you pay like $1,000 to get it done. Wipe your hands clean of it. Every year after that, you can do your taxes yourself. It's super straightforward with like one of those tax tools. This is probably going to be the biggest point of contention for you. At this point, your investments have probably started to grow too, or you're investing more into your investments. So now you should probably start to think about, okay, like what are my longer term goals within my investments? What is like my 5-year plan looking like? And how does immigration fit into that sort of 5-year plan? Which is also where I want to talk about immigration. After a year, maybe you've filed some immigration stuff if your company has helped you out with that. And you're starting to see the movements on it. That's kind of where you should be at after a year. And yeah, so that's basically what I think that your life should look like at day 0, day 1, day 10, 1 month, 1 year in the US. Hopefully this checklist is helpful for you moving to the US. I wish I had this when I first moved. Otherwise, if I had, I wouldn't have made so many mistakes. So if you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any other tips, leave them down below in the comments so other people watching can also learn from them. And if you want to see another video about critical mistakes that you cannot make while on a TN visa, you should watch this video right here.